There you go.
Do I ever forget to record? Oh yeah,
No.
I've done that, right?
I don't know.
I was on a podcast yesterday, and she goes, "Oh my God, do I have the recording on?" And she goes, "I just did one the other day. I totally forgot to turn the recording on. We got like 40 minutes in. It was like crazy, right?"
Yeah.
It's funny, man. Things are slow today. I'm telling you. Facebook coming up is slow.
Yeah.
All right, let's go public. Let's go live.
Right.
All right.
Live from New York.
Live from New York. It's Saturday night. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Multifamily Unplugged, the #1 Saturday morning radio show for real estate investors, brokers, property management professionals. Hey, this is where we're going to dive into some raw, unscripted conversation about multifamily real estate, property management, and some current events. Boy, do we have a show lined up for you today, right, Carl?
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, listen, today's show is brought to you by My Core Intentions, where you find some of the most defined strategic training programs. You know, if you're looking for a jump start, so go grab a podcast for yourself, come to a webinar, get an injection of some knowledge and some information. It's also brought to you by your Focus Guy, where Moose is going to bring you timeless principles over and over that most successful business owners have gained, their skills and strategies to change their mindset and move their business needle forward. Hey, I'm Mike Morawski. I'm the co-host of Saturday Multifamily Unplugged. I'm joined by my co-host, C. Gordon Moose, who we proudly call Moose. What's up, Carl?
How you doing, Mike?
Hey, it's good to see you this morning, man.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, we got a guest today, Carl.
All right.
Yep, and I hear it's his first time.
Uh-oh.
You know what that means, right?
So that's right.
Hey,
Watch out.
Steve Rowe from the Gulf Coast. He is going to talk to us today about multifamily investing and how he's a broker advisor. And we're going to talk about what the market is like. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. You know, looking forward to getting on here with you guys and kind of, talking about multifamily. That's what I love talking about. That's why I do this for a living. And I love being able to help other people that are thinking about buying or maybe thinking about selling the properties that they own. Because I think even with a lot of people getting into the market, I think it's still a great thing to be a part of and a great way to kind of make some income.
Glad you're here, Steve. We're going to really pick your brain. I know that, we've had a couple of conversations and you have some valuable knowledge. So I'm looking forward to that. Hey, if anybody out there has any questions, you want to ask Steve questions, Carl questions, me questions, please drop them in the chat. Drop something in the chat. Let us know you're out there and who's out there anyhow this morning. I want to welcome everybody. And if somebody was supposed to be here and they're not here, go wake them up, grab your coffee and sit back and enjoy this ride. All right. Hey, Steve, in one word, describe to us, what is your personal business strategy?
Prospecting.
Okay.
It's prospecting.
God, I'm an old prospector, man. We're going to have a lot to talk about. I love prospecting. Here's what I know, right? As a broker, the same skills you use as a broker are the same skills that an investor can use to find off-market deals.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The way it just takes a lot of, it's a numbers game. I might talk to 50 people before I really talk to decision makers. And out of those 50 calls, I might get a meeting or two. And that's kind of just where it starts, to be able to get to know these people a little better, to feel comfortable going to work for them and doing something for them. So it's if I don't get in there and get started every morning and try to get to know some people and try to get on the phone with owners and buyers, not a lot's going to happen, and I'm not going to be able to learn very much. And that's really where I've gotten the most of my information from, is talking to people that are already doing it and that already have a good understanding of it. Yeah. So that's where it starts, is that prospecting, disciplined prospecting, really. Yeah.
I always say to master the repetitious boredom, the mundaneness of it, right? That's where the success comes from. Hey, let me say good morning to Trevor, to Victoria, to TV. It's good to see you guys. I'm glad you're here. Any questions, anything you need? Hey, Larry, Danny, good to see you guys. Carl, you look like you're busy. What are you doing?
No, I'm making notes here. I
No.
noticed. Hey, notice is that a Sperry Van S shirt? Is that your firm?
It
that
is. It is. That
Yeah.
is a friend of mine and actually former partner on some property that we own together bought into Sperry Van Ness October 2019. That's when I joined him, and it's been phenomenal since then. It's amazing the kind of training and the kind of help that they've got, and it's been a great thing. That's why I wanted to wear the shirt this morning, because they've been really the first big step to being able to work in commercial real estate as a whole was their help and their training.
So
Yeah.
here's what I heard him say, right? That ever since he joined Sperry Van Ness, they got awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Steve, why don't you give us some of your background? Tell us where how you wound up in this crazy industry, and what your path has been.
Right. Well, I started in construction when I was 9 years old, working for my dad, making 50 cents an hour, mostly just kind of hanging out and, just kind of being there. He was building a lot of spec houses at the time. This was, in the late 90s, early 2000s, when that was still an easy thing to do. Shouldn't say easy, but when that was still a thing to do. And kind of learned from him about what work should look like, and that it's, trying to put your best foot forward and trying to do the best that you can, and maybe taking a process that somebody else has already created, and how can I make this better for myself? How can I get this done in such a way that makes sense for us, that makes sense for the client? And I kind of have used that ever since to move into commercial real estate, whether it was buying portfolios in 2017, or since then getting full-time into brokerage. It was really the work ethic and being able to understand that, hey, I've got to do this thing to the best of my ability so everybody can be happy by the time it's done. Because especially as a broker, as an advisor, I'm just a middleman in the puzzle. So I've got to make sure that everybody I'm dealing with is happy. And if I'm not doing my best, not working as hard as I can at it, I don't think that's what's going to happen. And I want long-term relationships with everybody that I'm working with. So it was really learning that from a very, very early age to be able to turn that into, how do I prospect? How do I take care of clients? And how do I kind of get into this multifamily game? Because it is a competitive space. Whether it's being a broker or being an investor, it can be very competitive. So you've really got to do something to set yourself apart. So I think working in commercial construction for all those years and learning to deal with people and learning how to get things done to the best of my ability was what really gave me the first stepping stone to get into this.
Yeah, I always found it advantageous, because if you could talk to a client a little bit about, hey, this roof doesn't look so good, or, you might want to have somebody come out and, never put yourself on the line, but you say, this has been my experience, or this is what I see, or, some people always ask, hey, what do you think a kitchen will cost, or a bathroom? And if you have those kind of conceptual ideas and can help your client, I think it helps you as a broker a lot more too.
Absolutely. And it really turns into more of a long-term relationship. And that's something else that I learned from my dad was, hey, just be honest with them up front. Tell them, hey, I think it's going to take this long. I think it's going to cost this much. And usually you can hit those numbers if you're honest with them up front. And I've even told buyers that we're looking at properties, say, hey, I don't think you're going to be, you got to talk to somebody licensed in the area, ready to do it. But I don't know that you're going to be able to do what you're thinking of for $2,000 a door or for $2,500 a door. So maybe think about that a little bit harder. And I might have lost that deal at that time, but I built a relationship with somebody moving forward that knows, like, well, he's going to tell me the truth, even if it costs him a commission or cost him, that particular deal.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, let's get down into some, I want to talk a little bit about what the market's like right now. And is this a good time to buy? Should you be waiting? Do you think there's a better time coming? What's your opinion?
And before you answer that, Steve, where are you located? I sense a little bit of a southern accent there. Where are you? Because that, as we all know, real estate's a local thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I should have said that off the bat. I'm in Mobile, Alabama. I've been here since the late 90s. Moved down here when I was 9. Born in Connecticut, but been here, for a long 25 years now. And we're licensed in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. So that's kind of the markets that I stay in. But really across the Gulf Coast, I'll drive, me and another guy that I work with in the office, say if it's within 4 hours of our office, we're going to get to know that market well enough to be able to help the people that are there. So
Well,
anything
yeah,
around there.
you've definitely lost your Connecticut accent. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm
Absolutely.
sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, go ahead, answer Mike's question. But that gives us, so you're southeast and like the eastern seaboard. So, but yeah, so go ahead and answer Mike's question.
Right. And yeah, that's I actually kind of like being around here because a lot of people do like buying in this area. And I think for most things and for most people, it's hard to say like, oh, it's a good time to buy, it's a bad time to buy. Because I think all of these things, it's really a marginal kind of exercise, and it's a marginal game because something might be just right now if you get the right financing and if you find the right deal. So I think for the right situation, I think it can still be a good time to buy or still be a good time to sell, but you've got to put the right pieces together. You've got to put the right people together to be able to get that done. And with financing the way that it is, and being able to find the right property, if you can find it, it's still a good time to buy. But what I've been talking to different sellers about is, this might be the year to be able to get the most money you can out of your property, because it's, if things are changing and change sometimes, incites fear a little bit and makes people want to like, let me go ahead and do what I can while we're still able to do it, because we never know what's coming. I mean, just in 2019, we had no idea 2020 was coming for us. And now it's still, I think, sometimes a good time to move forward, but it's got to be a marginal thing, whereas a few bucks here and there can kind of make that difference. And that's what I try to get a lot of the folks to understand is, hey, it might make sense at $50, it might not make sense at $55. So let's figure out the difference there and really be sure about what we're telling people.
So do you have a preference on markets today? And
I do.
I know you can pretty much do anything anywhere, right?
Right.
In any state. So any preferences, anything that you have a preference to, not so much just where the smart money's at today?
Right. And I've actually got a preference in Mobile, the kind of, partly because I live here, but Mobile, Baldwin County, and Pensacola, I think, are doing very well. Pensacola is obviously growing a great deal, and there's a lot of national money coming into there. But Baldwin County has a ton of growth. The Daphne, Spanish Fort area has got a lot of growth in it. And I think Mobile, because of the diversified employment, is staying together a little better than some of the bigger markets. We've got a port, we build ships, we build planes, we've got a big college here, even though it's not a college town. So, and I'm actually working my way up a little bit north of here, still in the south end of Alabama, but Dothan Enterprise, I went through some markets there in the last few days. I've been traveling this past week to get to know some of those owners, because if the growth is there and you can look through the employment and see where the people are working and how diversified that is, I think it can be a good market. But my plans are to stick in the Gulf Coast, where it's Mobile, Baldwin County, Pensacola is really, I think, an important markets to be in for the next 10 years.
How about Muscle Shoals? You got anything going on up there?
I actually looked at a couple of properties this past year in Florence, which is just on the other side of that river from Muscle Shoals. And man, I loved it. I've had a guy, and I think he's still trying to get something under contract up there and get it done, but it is just a charming little area to be in. And I think people like living there because of that. So, but I haven't done anything in Muscle Shoals yet, but I will.
Yeah, well, there's I bring that up. There's a very famous recording studio there. That's where everybody recorded everything in the 60s and 70s. But anyway, yeah, no, that's a great, listen, my mom and dad for 30 years, used to go down to Panama City Beach, not the party area, but where the older folks went. And I drove down with them a couple times, and we drove up through there, and it's beautiful country, you know what I mean? And a lot of people up north in Chicago, if you've never been down there, there's just some great, there's some great people and some great opportunities down there. So it's great, really great day. I think you might be the first guest, right, Mike, that we've had that's kind of down in that area. We've had some people from the East Coast, but I don't think anybody down in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, no, very true, very true. Hey, listen, I thought you were going to talk about Muscle Shoals because of Leonard Skinner's song.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, we have a question in the chat. So just so this is a question for Carl. Reference to the Public Act 101-0357. You know what that is? how to navigate that after the passing of the law in August of 2019. Also transactional funding and double closings. Are those being done as a solution to this new law?
So that was for me.
Yeah.
Well, let me just,
Are you clear on it? Or if you're not, I'll ask TB to join in and say something.
yeah, like I say, just to let you know, I'm not an attorney. I used to be a banker, but that was a long time ago. I know that double closings were, they were still happening when I was in banking and we were doing deals. There are some ways around that, but I don't want to, I don't, maybe you should bring somebody else in to talk about that specifically.
Hang on. Hey, TB, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to, can you specifically get, bring some clarity to that question for Carl?
Sure, I can. I have a situation where there's a family friend who called me last night, and she has a property in Chicago, Cook County, that she wants to leave because it was an heir's property. And because of COVID-19, she left and she doesn't want to go back. And she wanted me to buy this property from her. But I don't really want to go to Chicago. So I was looking to maybe pass it to someone else. But from what I'm understanding, due to that act, there's no really wholesaling going on in Chicago unless you're a broker. And I just was wondering, how are people navigating that? I understand that you can do one transaction a year, but I wasn't even clear on that because I don't know the ins and outs. Can you do the one transaction a year? Do you have to be a broker? I wasn't quite sure how to pass that to someone else.
You can do 3 transactions a year before you have to be a broker and before you're considered to have or be a broker dealer, right? So yeah, so you can do up to 3 transactions a year. If you want to put some details together on that, we might look at that.
Okay.
See what that deal's all about, and maybe we can either help you or help give you some guidance. So if we want to take that on offline.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
And Steve, just to let you know, what they've done here in Illinois, because as you know, each state has their own real estate act. The brokers really, it was driven, my understanding is it was driven by the brokers. The brokers were getting a little upset because they were getting cut out of deals. And so they put some pressure on legislation to change the law so that if you're a wholesaler, you're limited. And the intention was, to protect people, because apparently wholesalers were putting, they were locking up deals and then they weren't executing or perfecting them. And the home seller was the loser. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're referring to. So I don't know what the environment is down where you are, but here in Illinois, I think it is. I think you're right, Mike. I think you can only do 3 before you actually have to be licensed or something else kicks in. So
yeah, because I looked into that. But Steve, hey, this brings up a really good point, right? So you're a prospector, and anybody who's in the business prospecting, okay, is going to have business. It's not going to bother them if some wholesaler's doing more deals, right? Listen, I got into business. I prospected my first year in the business. My first 8 months, I sold 78 houses, all for sale by owner, because I picked the phone up. Steve, I could tell you that I dialed the phone 20,000 times a year. I made $8 every time I dialed the phone. I knew my numbers, my KPIs, right? If you know your numbers, you're going to be successful. So I think, when you look at the real estate industry, and let's just talk about residential real quick for a minute, right? The average residential realtor sells 12 to 15 homes a year, maybe. Okay. So if they're selling 1 house a month or less, how are they, so no wonder they want to complain that a wholesaler's got 2 deals locked up. So, I'm sorry, but everybody's got an opinion about something. And mine is, hey, go to work. Quit complaining about the economy and go to work. Hustle, grind. Come on, guys, roll your sleeves up. Steve, cut me off, would you?
No, Steve, he used to be a builder. He probably sounds like your dad. Come on, boys, let's go to work, right?
Yeah, right. No, you've got a point. You're absolutely right. And, there are definitely some residential agents that I think are getting after it. But something that's interesting that happened to me years ago, I was looking to buy some more property, and I was just going to do single family because I didn't have, the knowledge or the know-how to get into multifamily at the time. And I sent probably 15 agents in town. Hey, if you come across anything, can you send it to me? I'll buy anything of this size, ready to close quickly. Just send it to me. I'll buy it. Probably won't even need to look at it because I know construction so well. I can drive by and say like, okay, I can buy this house if the price is right. And out of the 15 or so people that I sent that message and email to, I got one person to send me something to buy. And this was back when it was a little easier to find that stuff. And so that kind of gives you an idea of sometimes I think people are just kind of waiting. And it happens in commercial real estate too. People are waiting for something to happen. And that's why they say it takes, 5 to 10 years to get to where you're making any money in this business. But you can actually do it a lot quicker if you do, like you said, your numbers. My ratio is $22 per call, 125 per connection, and $5,000 per meeting. So I know even if I get a no, I made $22. And if I get to sit down with somebody, even if I've got to drive 4 hours to do it, there's going to be money at the other side of it eventually if I keep doing that kind of stuff. And I think tracking those numbers, like coaches will tell you to do, and different books will tell you to do, that's the important stuff because it reminds you, get out there and get to work and you'll find the right things.
That's right. So how about, listen, I do a show on Tuesday called Insider Secrets. And any insider secrets, so here's what I said early, right? Is that the same techniques you use to find listings to sell are the same techniques that an investor can go find off-market deals with. Talk a little bit about how you're doing that.
Right. And that's in order to find those deals, like you said, I've got to find the right person to call. So I'm not calling some REIT out of New York, and I'm not calling some huge trust. I'm calling the people that I'm able to help and doing that consistently. So I've got to find and follow up with the people that I can do something with. And it's not just any property out there. I'm really trying to narrow it down because I don't see it as a problem of scarcity. Some people, like you said, don't want wholesalers doing something or don't want to share their secrets with anybody. But I know that there's enough money flowing and there's enough transactions happening to be able to help people. So really the secret sauce, even though there's not one particular thing, the secret sauce is, like you said, just get out there and work at it. If there was some magical, hey, do this and you'll make $1 million a year, then I think everybody would be doing it. But for me, it's at 9 o'clock in the morning, no matter what else is going on, I'm getting in there and hitting the phones and calling the right people. And I've actually hired a virtual assistant now to make sure that I'm keeping up with those people, where I can just shoot them an email. Hey, remind me to call this person back in a month because I know I need to talk to them. My first year in this business, I think it was 5,000 or 6,000 cold calls to people, but I called each one of those people once. I never talked to them again. And like everybody knows, if you're in this business, sales happen an average of, it takes 7 touches. It's 5 to 12, I believe, is 80% of the touches. So if you just talk to somebody one time, sure, there's a chance they might be ready to sell. There's a chance they might be ready to sit down with you, but I've almost never talked to somebody once and actually gotten something done. It always took multiple times. It always took multiple efforts to get in front of somebody to be able to do something with them. Because the people that want to sell or don't want to sell, they're making good money. Why would they want to get rid of their property? But if I can bring something to the table to help them to understand, like, hey, it might be a good time if you know about this, if you know about these tax situations, if you know about what to do with your property. But you don't get that on one call. You don't get that. But hey, do you want to sell something? No. Okay. Well, I'll never talk to you again then because you said no. It takes effort and it takes knowledge and it takes bringing some value to the table.
So here's a quick story, right? So I'm in the business probably a couple of years, and I have a client say, man, you are so tenacious. And I have no idea what that means. So I go, oh, I'm very gracious about it. I said, hey, thank you. I run home, I grab the dictionary and I look it up and I go, oh, I am. So, listen, you said it, right? It's the sales not in the first call, the sales in the 7th, 8th, 10th, 12th call, right? That's where the sale happens. And, listen, if I'm a seller and you're talking to me like that, you're the guy I want to go with because I know what it entails, what you're going to do to get my property sold. So good for you. I'm actually going to cut that clip out and I'm going to sell it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
A couple of things came to mind while you're talking, Steve. You talked about systems and strategies and procedures and developing good habits, right? And then it's also mindset. My whole thing is mindset. you can have the best program, the best market, the best properties, whatever. But what I'm really hearing from you, and I don't know you that well. I mean, we just pretty much met, but you have the right mindset. I think that's really a key thing for people to understand is, you have to be, you don't have to be, but what's required to succeed is persistence and tenacity and having that attitude of abundance, right? You said, you're not worried about what everybody else is doing because there's enough out there for everybody. And that to me is really starts with your mindset, and that's such a key thing. If you're going to be a broker or you're going to be a successful investor, is you're going to run into those 7 or 10 people that say no, or I'm not interested, or blah, 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 blah. But it's, you're one step closer to yes. When I was in sales, I had a great sales manager. He used to say the same thing. Every no, you're one step closer to a yes. And so it's that persistent effort and that consistent effort, right? And you follow up, right? The fortune's in the follow-up, right? We've all heard that one, right? So you don't just call somebody one time. You put them on the tickler, you call them 90 days later. I mean, how many times have I knocked on a door of a property that wasn't on the market and said, hey, listen, Mr. 6 flat or 12 flat, if you're ever interested in selling, if you ever get tired of tenants that don't respect you or don't pay the rent, give me a call. You know what I mean? You follow up with that person 90 days later and they're like, you know what? Well, let's go grab a cup of coffee because you know what? I am tired of this. You're right. And that's how real business is done. So I really appreciate your comments there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad. And that it's been the difference maker for me, even just this week already, because I really wanted to, double down on my prospecting and my follow-up. And I called somebody and he was kind of rough with me on the phone, or I didn't think he wanted to sit down. And it wasn't until he said, look, you just trying to buy my place? I said, no, I'm not trying to buy it. I just want to get to know you a little bit, see where the situation, see where the relationship goes. And by the end of our meeting, he was like, well, here's my T12 and here's my rent roll. Let's see what you can get for it, but he gets so many people from just trying to make that one call and try to get lucky that I understand it's not luck. It's a little bit of luck in there, but it's not just 100% luck where I'm just trying to find the right timing. It's keeping in touch and helping these people learn something new. And I'm learning something I learned probably more from that meeting the other day with that guy than he got from me, but it was still just, that's how you get better in this business.
Yeah, isn't that true? It's always, here I always say success leaves clues, right? So if somebody's done it a little bit better than you pick up from them. Hey, just a real quick commercial just for everybody who's hanging around. Monday night on my meetup calls. So whether you're on the property management meetup or the multifamily meetup, I'm combining both groups. I am doing a webinar Monday night called Multifamily Fundamentals. The free webinar, it's going to be some real good factual information. Plus I got a special offer. So if you can make that Monday night, go to my meetup, go to meetup.com, find multifamily mastermind on Monday night and register for Monday night's meetup. So, Carl, what else do we need to know?
I mean, this is just a really great conversation, and Steve, understanding that, oh, by the way, the reason I mentioned Sperry Van Ness is my good buddy, Scott Mazel, is the guy that runs it up here in Chicago, and he's done really well. It's a great company. But, a lot of the people that are listening, might be new to the market, right? They might be looking at just buying their first, 4 flat or 6 flat or 8 flat. They might own a condo, but let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what advice would you give somebody that's just starting to look at getting into the multifamily space, just in general?
Right. I think some of the important things there are, like kind of we've already talked about, is knowing what you're trying to accomplish out of it and knowing that before you get into the deal. Are you trying to scale quickly, or you just want to have this one, or what are you trying to do there? And I think understanding, and I actually learned this from my current managing director, who I was partnered with on some deals first, that like there's going to be problems that are going to happen. Something's going to come up. Some tenant's not going to be right, and be prepared for that kind of stuff. Just because you're trying to get something with zero money down, or I've got the 20% down, or I've got the 25% down for a commercial loan, knowing that other problems are going to come up and being prepared for those situations, and knowing who your property manager is going to be first, or are you going to manage the property first? Because there's a lot of really odd things that happen. I've managed my own property before, and it's shocking how many different weird calls you get, and you don't know what to do. And if you don't know who to call, and you don't, even if it's just to say, man, this is going on, I'm not sure where to go with this. And if you don't have those people to kind of reach out to, and you don't have that team built around you, it's going to be difficult to figure some of that stuff out. So, but finding that right property that you know you can get it somewhere, I think is very important. But even if you can feel good about making money, even if you can't do the improvements that you're thinking, or if the rent's not going to go where you think it's going to go, and you're still able to buy it and you're still able to hold on to it, then I think that's the right property for you if you're able to do that.
That's so great. And you own property as well. Not only that, you're a broker, but you also own property.
I do. I actually sold my properties this past year, and I'm waiting for the right thing to get into because I do think it's a good time to buy. And part of my prospecting is, I might end up buying some of these things if it's not right for some of the other people. But I've only owned 12 units so far, but I've sold them all this past year because it was a good time to sell.
Yeah.
Just like I'm telling other people, say, hey, I sold mine already. Maybe you can too.
Yeah, well, no, that's a good, and the only reason I bring that up, Mike, and I'll let you go is, every time I worked with a lawyer or an appraiser or an inspector or a broker, I always asked them, do you own property, right? I always wanted to work with somebody that's not just a broker, right? Or just a lawyer, but they actually own property, because that illustrated to me that they understand what I'm either going through or what I may potentially go through. And so that's the reason I sense that you were also an investor, and that's why I brought that up. And the point I want to make is that I always, and Mike, I'd like to hear your opinion on this too, but I always asked people, whether, like I said, whether it was an attorney, an accountant, an inspector, whoever, how many properties do you own? And if they didn't own properties, I probably would shy away from them. So that's the point I want to make.
Right. Hey, really good point. So, Steve, what do you like from a product standpoint right now?
I think there's still good money to be made in single family. And I think the multifamily that I come across that I think there's really the most money that can be made is obviously a brick on slab, less than 70 units, if you've got the right third party manager. And that's what I've been taught. And that's what I'm doing now, is making sure that I've got a team of people that I can bring on board, whether I'm doing this as a broker or looking to buy something. Like, how do these other people feel about these things? Because if it's something, especially in the South, we deal with hurricanes. It's different in Chicago. We've got a different mindset looking at property. It's more about water intrusion and is it in a flood zone, that sort of thing. But I like having a team together to help me figure out, is this the right property? But that's what I'm going after here lately, is those 30 to 70 type units that are, maybe that 70 to 80 vintage, that are ready for that new person to come in and have the business model of, let's put a little more money into it. Let's get this to where it's a better community. And what I prefer with my buyers when I'm showing them those properties is the kind of people that, like, I want to make everyone that lives here happy. Because if everybody here is happy, it's a much easier thing. So that's what I think is the mindset coming into a property, whether it's 6 units or 106 units. I want this to be a great community moving forward. And then it'll be that much easier to manage, that much easier to take care of, and that much easier to sell down the road. And that's, so I think it could just about be anything, any size multifamily or any size single family portfolio, if you're taking care of it and if you've got the right mindset moving forward.
Yeah, and I like what you said there, because I remember when I would tell people, we owned about 22 buildings. I think it was up to that number. But I used to tell people, listen, this is my building, but it's your home, and we're partners here. You know what I mean? I'm going to provide a safe and comfortable place for you to live that's affordable. However, I need your help too. If there's somebody that's not behaving or there's some problems, the sooner you let me know, the better, because it's my building, but it's your home. And I really like, what you said there is, if you're able to, help others and do well on your own, that's just a win-win for everybody. And, looking at it from that perspective, I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people just go in and they buy property and think, they've read some book or they've seen some seminar or something that says, oh, I was a landscaper living in my mother's basement, and now, the checks just roll in and everything's hunky dory. Well, for us that have owned property, we know that that's not the case. Management is very key. I always say, a building is a vehicle, right? It's an investment vehicle. So is a Ferrari. you know, you can have the best investment vehicle in the world, but if you don't know how to run it, you don't know how to manage it. It's like getting in the Ferrari, putting a brick on the accelerator, turning the engine on, and throw it in gear. You know, it's going to crash. So, you know, I really like your approach that you know, your management is very important, and your strategy and how you can improve the property and the people that live in the property. I think that's just a great way of looking at things.
You know, you talked about a couple of really important things too, and things that I teach investors, especially new investors, and even investors who have thousands of units, is team building, your network, right? Your network is really important, who's around you. The other thing that we started to talk about was strategy and your buying strategy. What do you like? Like, I know that I like, you know, market rate rent, garden level, 2 to 3 story, pitched roofs on a slab, you know, and you kind of talked about that. I think the buyer, the multifamily buyer needs to have that avatar for that property penciled out and know what they need to go look for. You know, I always tell the story, the first deal I ever did, I didn't have that. And I bought into the seller, what the seller was saying he thought was a good deal, and it was terrible. I became a don't wanter like that, right? So, and but after that, I sat down with my broker and I said, hey, look, let's pencil out this strategy. And you know, we kept tweaking it and fine tuning it till I got to a point where there were 20 things on a list that if I pulled in a parking lot, I knew that was it. That was the deal. So it's interesting when you know where you're going, how you get there.
Right. And Steve, you're a broker. I mean, I remember when I was a broker, people would come in and say, oh, just find me a good deal, you know, and then there were guys like Mike that would come in and say, I want this geographic area. I want this age property. I want this type of property. I want a pitch roof. I want blah, 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 blah. That made my job easier, right? I mean, you know, when you know exactly what your clients are looking for, then you can go out and find it. And I think that's a really great point.
Hey, Steve,
Absolutely.
we got a question for you. Living in the South, for your acquisitions that you buy and hold, do you hire property management? And does that property management company hire resident managers? I think that depends on the size, but you can answer that. That always helps with the morale of the residents.
Right. And like you said, that is a size issue. You know, a lot of people say, you know, if it's 70 units or above, that's kind of a good starting point. But as most things, that's still a marginal situational kind of situation, because if it's 70 units, but there are a lot of one beds and they're 500 a door, then you're not necessarily going to be able to have third party on site. But if it's, you know, 60 units and they're 2 and 3 bed townhomes, then it can kind of afford to do it. And that's why it's so, everything that I do is so nuanced to be able to find, okay, this particular property needs to be this. And that's why I've got to have such a good understanding of these properties that I'm working on and these owners that I know, because it takes really knowing what it looks like to know if you can afford it. But I always prefer to have a third party manager, because then their whole job is managing the property, and then I've got to, you know, manage the property manager. But I try to find the right people that don't necessarily need to be managed as hard as some of the other ones, but if they're taking care of the toilets and they're taking care of the rent and they're taking care of the roofs, then I can kind of deal with whether I'm trying to get more property or helping investors to get more property. That's the much easier game for me to be able to do. And nobody can scale if you're self-managing your 70 units, unless of course you've got a team in place that's doing it. But either way, it's got to take a group of people to get those kind of properties, to get some kind of value out of them.
Hey, you know, just because you have a property management company doesn't mean you don't have to work. You know, you still need to keep your eye on the ball, right? I mean, you send me the reports. Let me look at the reports. Let me ask you why we're where we are, occupancy wise, and you know, evictions, things like that. But you know, you still got to look at the KPIs, right? So it's important.
Yeah, I remember the first management company we hired. They weren't paying the electric bill. I didn't find out for 90 days. Right? Because I mean, I didn't find out for 90 days. And I'm like, what the heck? You know, so you definitely have to keep your eye on I mean, that was only one thing. I don't think they paid the taxes. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but you know, you can't just, yeah, it's your business, right? And you've got to keep an eye on your business for sure.
That was a great reaction.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where it kind of takes having a system in place to know, because it's hard to stop and think like, well, did they pay every last thing? And then I find myself wondering something. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm trying to go to bed and I'm not 100% sure about something. But if I've got a system in place, and I'm stealing this from a podcast I listened to, that this guy flew jets and he started buying property. It's like, I've got a system, I've got a checklist, and I don't have to think later on, is the power bill paid on that property or is the taxes paid on that property? Because I know I did my checklist. I know if it was there, if it wasn't there, and I know if it needs to be taken care of. And that's kind of same thing with my prospecting, same thing with my owners. It's let me make sure, let me have a list of everything that I'm going through to make sure I can have, to I know, because that's what I don't want. I don't want sleepless nights. I don't want to be thinking about, properties at midnight when I should be sleeping. So I've got to kind of stay in touch with my system, everything that I'm working for, to know what's going on, whether it's property managers, banks, tax guys. I mean, there's a whole team of people it takes. Even my small potato self buying small properties, I've already got a team to do all those things.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. I can't do it all.
We're getting pretty close to the end. I got one last question for you here. But how do you feel? I think there's big opportunity today in small multifamily deals. And I think for the flipper to get in and do something between 2 to 20 units in and out in 12 to 15 months, 15 to 18 months, I think there's big opportunity out there today. Any thoughts about that, or any markets? How about, I'd love to see something in Mobile myself personally, because we have a little money and looking to deploy it. So, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you some stuff, because you're absolutely right. People think that, and they hear these people that have written these books and done these things that say like, oh, you can't make money in 12 units. It's like, well, yes, you can, if you've got somebody local. That's why anybody out there can buy something in Mobile, because you can build a relationship with me. I can show you who else to build a relationship with in the area. And I think those 12 units that none of the big guys are going after, because it's not worth their time, you can still make a fortune per door. And that's really what it comes down to, whether it's 2 or 2,000. If I'm making money at every door I've got, then I'm making money, whether it's a bunch of 12 units or a bunch of single families or whatever the deal is.
Right. Hey, Steve, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can, my email address, they're more than welcome to email me. It's Stephen.Rowe, my first and last name, at svn.com.
Okay.
And I've got our company website is SVN TPA. We're Toomey Property Advisors. Justin Toomey is my managing director. So SVN TPA is our website. And then I'm also on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, and I love getting messages. I love talking to people about multifamily, just like we're doing here. So if you're looking to get a hold of me, or they can even call my cell phone number, and that's why I give it out. It's 251-706-9022. I'll say it again for anybody needing it: 251-706-9022. Call me. I want to help you out.
And Stephen, it was Stephen.Rowe@svn.com.
Correct.
Yeah, I just put that in the chat for people.
Okay, great. Yeah, that is the best way to get a hold of me, and that's my cell phone. And me and my managing director are big on, we answer our phones. We'll call you back. We do not miss calls like that.
Good. Well, Steve, I'm glad that you were here today. Carl, any last bits of advice?
No, just really great. Great to chat with you. And now I've got a friend down in Mobile. If I ever feel like getting out of town, I'm going to give you a call. Maybe we'll go have a cup of coffee live.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to it.
Okay. Next week we're going to have Derek and Sophie on, husband and wife. We're going to talk a little bit about multifamily and how marriage and multifamily play into part, and how being in business together with your spouse can be interesting and lively, and great couple. So you won't want to miss next week. And if anybody has any questions or needs anything during the week, never hesitate to reach out to Carl or myself. We'll be more than happy to help you, either on the mindset side or the multifamily side. We're glad everybody is here today. Steve, thank you so much for being here. Carl, as always, it's a pleasure, and we will look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Sounds good, guys. Have a great
Guys,
week.
thanks for
Bye.
having me on.